Straight ahead on CCX News, a Brooklyn Park woman's personal story and her invitation to attend the President's State of the Union address. Plus, a Brooklyn Center lawmaker's bill that she believes will help remove barriers to voting. And a spotlight on charter schools and strong views toward them.
I personally think that the charter school process in Minnesota is out of control.
We look at their impact and the differing views about their role in Minnesota's education system. CCX News starts right now. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. We'll have more on those stories in just a moment. But first, as if the snow and ice wasn't enough, Tuesday's commute for some was made more difficult by a water main break. This was the scene Tuesday in Brooklyn Park. This is on 63rd Avenue between Boone Avenue and Highway 169. Drivers had to take an unexpected detour due to the road being shut down. As we went to air, city public works crews had hoped to reopen the road by the Tuesday evening rush hour. In New Hope, police are investigating a serious two-vehicle crash that required rescue personnel to extricate a child. It happened Tuesday morning in the 7100 block of Bass Lake Road. Both drivers and the child were taken to North Memorial Health Hospital. Police are investigating whether speed and alcohol may have played a role in that crash. A Brooklyn Park resident who fled Liberia 19 years ago due to that country's civil war will attend Tuesday night's State of the Union address in Washington, D.C. She will be the guest of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Clark is facing possible deportation.
So we just want the government to know that we are all people. We are human beings. We have feelings. If you've lived here 19 years like I've lived here, and it's just that rock just be, pulled from under your leg like that, or a family that has like the parents on DED, and if their children were born here, to just send them back and leave their family, just consider that. Know that family is important, and what we've contributed in this country, at least let's have a thank you by giving us a pathway to citizenship.
The Trump administration is ending a program that allows citizens of Liberia living in the U.S. to avoid deportation. That program is known as Deferred Enforced Departure. But the administration is allowing a one-year wind-down period to ease their return. Now, before Linda Clark went to hear the State of the Union address, she was at Brooklyn Park City Hall. The City Council passed a resolution showing support for Liberians on Deferred Enforced Departure Status, or DED. The resolution urges the Minnesota congressional delegation to pressure Congress to pass immigration reform and urge the president to reinstate DED status before a March 31st deadline. Councilmember Mark Maida abstained from the vote, saying it wasn't the council's place to get involved in a federal political issue. A local representative is brand new at the job, but she's already pushing a bill through the Minnesota legislature.
This limitation at the polls is still a violation of the Voting Rights Act. Even a complaint was filed directly to the Secretary of State saying that this is a potential lawsuit.
People with language barriers or disabilities often need someone else's help to fill out their ballots. Minnesota law currently states that any one person can help a maximum of 3 other people vote. Representative Samantha Vang says that's discriminatory against immigrants and people with disabilities. She authored a bill to remove that restriction from state law. Tuesday, the bill got past its final House committee stop on its way to the floor. While there were 2 amendments that would have weakened the bill proposed by Republicans who expressed concerns over voter fraud, neither were adopted, and the bill easily passed the committee.
Voter fraud is only a very insignificant part of our election. In fact, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than commit voter fraud.
The bill now moves on to the House floor, where Vang thinks it has a very good chance of passing. It will also have to clear the Senate, and Vang thinks it will face a more uphill battle in that chamber. Charter schools are everywhere in the state of Minnesota, and when they are brought up in conversations about education, people often have strong reactions to them. Today, we continue our series on charter schools. Reporter Meredith Hackler joins us now with more. Meredith?
Shannon, in 1991, Minnesota was at the forefront of the nation as lawmakers approved the first charter school law in the country. Today, there are more than 150 charter schools across the state, educating around 60,000 students. Ever since the schools were created, they've become a topic that many educators have strong opinions on.
Do you remember anybody in history class who was hailed as Pater Patriae?
Charter schools and education have always been a very dividing topic.
I personally think that the charter school process in Minnesota is out of control.
One of the best things that I've heard about charter schools is when you've seen one charter school, you've seen one charter school.
Joe Nathan would know. He helped write the nation's first charter public school law and has worked with governors in more than 25 states to help with similar legislation.
Number one is D.
They have to teach to the same standards, they have to take the same statewide tests, and they may not be religious schools, period. And there was one school that was accused, and investigation found that it was promoting religion, and it was closed down.
And the closure of charter schools is an issue that educators like Peter Eckhoff see as an issue.
If you have a charter that fails financially, those students still have the right to a full, robust education, and so they, of course, matriculate back into the public school systems where they are coming in with a less robust background and adding to the burdens of the system without all the financial resources being attached at the same time.
What Eckhoff means by this is that the funding for the student was originally given to the charter school, but when the student is reintroduced to the public school system after a charter school closes, that funding doesn't immediately follow them.
And I think that what it does is it continues to siphon our limited resources as a state into very pointed and for-profit systems. We are seeing more and more of our public school systems struggling to meet the needs of all of the students that come through their door with the siphoning of those resources.
So how are charter schools funded anyway?
Charter schools in Minnesota are public schools. They are funded by state taxes, but they aren't eligible for local property taxes. So they get somewhat less than the local district schools, but they are funded by taxpayers just as traditional district schools are.
And the way they're funded is something that many educators have a problem with.
Obviously, you don't have to think long nor hard to see that as you lose hundreds of students and the funding that goes with it, it takes away resources that may be there for us to have a more robust or a deeper opportunity for our students in terms of some of the offerings that we might be able to grant.
Since the establishment of charter schools, enrollment in public schools has dropped, meaning funding for those public schools has changed. According to the Minnesota Department of Education, in 1992, public school districts across the state had over 831,000 students. Now they have around 805,000 students. While public schools find this to be negative, Nathan feels the addition of charter schools to education has helped make the education system in Minnesota better.
Minnesota ranks among the very best education systems in the world on international exams.
Since charter schools were created, the state has gone toe-to-toe with countries like Finland on international exams.
Minnesota students who are more racially diverse than Finnish students actually do better on several international exams than Finland, which has been frequently touted as one of the very top countries. So I think there's a lot to be proud of.
However, educators like Eckhoff say that charter schools oftentimes lack a diversity of people, since many of them are culturally focused. He also feels they lack a diverse curriculum.
The options that my children had growing up in the public school system, the diversity of courses that they had available to them was unprecedented as we compared it to even the private schools that had massive tuition rates in order for them to attend.
Открыли страницу 15.
While charter schools have their pros and cons, both sides agree that you should do your research before sending your child to either. Another important stat to mention is that since charter schools were established, graduation rates have continued to rise across the board, with students of color rates increasing the most. While experts say charter schools aren't the only reason for that happening, they say it's definitely a factor. Now, tomorrow on CCX News, we'll look at a charter school right here in the northwest suburbs and hear from parents as well as students on why they chose a charter school education over a traditional district one. Shannon?
All right, thank you, Meredith. Still ahead on CCX News, how creative and critical thinking come into play at one Robbinsdale school. Plus, the race is on at the Section 6 Nordic ski meet with local skiers headed to state. That story later in sports. But first, round 2 awaits. An even bigger snowfall is expected Wednesday night into Thursday. Sacred Heart Catholic School in Robbinsdale is the first urban Catholic school in the local archdiocese to implement a so-called C-STEM program. In today's School Spotlight, reporter Sonia Goen shows us what the program is all about, plus how teachers are merging faith and science fundamentals.
Sacred Heart Catholic School students receive lessons on faith and basic subjects like reading and history, but they're also getting a heavy dose of STEM classes.
We implemented our STEM program 3 years ago.
They follow the C-STEM program, which stands for collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. The staff renovated this STEM room for kindergarten through 5th grade, which includes a Lego wall. This is where the creativity and critical thinking components come into play.
Legos is a way for students to create, design, and build things using their imagination.
Through the stations, be focusing on...
Meanwhile, older students started a new STEM program this year called STEM Scopes, which is all about giving students hands-on experience.
There's a lot of exploring going on in that hands-on piece, so there's not necessarily just one right way to do it. But if the way they did it didn't work out, they have a chance to try again. This is what you're changing.
It's the amount of shuffles.
Yeah.
7th graders are learning about different plants and trees.
It was a very messy project. We did paper mache on all the branches and in the big trunk of the tree.
They made a replica of an ash tree.
The emerald ash borer invaded ash trees and killed the ash trees, and that messed up Minnesota's ecosystem.
The science lab is divided into 8 sections. Students work in groups and sometimes on their own. On this day, they're studying the life cycle of a tree.
So if there's a really wet year and the tree gets a lot of water, then the ring on the tree is bigger?
Oh yes, okay.
Students mimic a tree's life cycle to their own. If they had a good year in their life, they made a big ring. The idea is to get students excited about science.
Becoming engaged in science and seeing that science is all around, and then hopefully to really inspire them.
In Robbinsdale, Sonia Goins, CCX News.
Sacred Heart received a $188,000 grant from the Schultz Family Foundation so teachers could be STEM certified through St. Catherine University. Still ahead, why some are thinking spring despite this week's wintry weather. But first, it's a tough road to state, but the Wayzata girls hockey team is ready to shoot for a section title. John Jacobson is in next.
With Monday's mix of precipitation, conditions weren't exactly ideal for Nordic skiers, but with a limited window of time to hold section meets, the highly competitive Section 6 meet went on as planned. Snowy conditions to greet the boys at the start of the Classic Pursuit race at Worth Park. James Schneider of Wayzata out second in the pursuit, 18 seconds behind Mount West Tonka's Charlie Reinert. Will Ahmed of Armstrong in bib 3 starts 5 seconds behind Schneider. In the end, though, it's Schneider skiing a strong second race and winning the Section 6 title with a combined 2-race time of 21 minutes, 53.5 seconds. Reinert of Mound edges Ahmed of Armstrong for second place. The top 2 teams and top 6 individual finishers outside of those 2 teams qualify for state. Wayzata's Colin Freed and Thomas Golan finish 4th and 5th. They help the Trojans win the team title, edging Armstrong. To the girls' race, where Lucy Anderson of Armstrong goes out first after winning the morning freestyle race by 11 seconds. Mara McCullough of Wayzata, though, defends her section individual championship. The senior wins the combined race with a combined race time of 24 minutes, 0.07 seconds. Anderson of Armstrong is in second place. Like the boys' race, both the Falcons and Trojans teams qualify for next week's state meet. May Barnes of Armstrong finishes third, just edging Lauren McCullough of Wayzata by the slightest of margins. Leah Rudd of team champion Armstrong finishes 5th. Here's what 4 of the local state qualifiers had to say after their races.
After the skate race is kind of like a blow to my ego, seeing that I end up 18 seconds back in a 5K, but it felt really good to make it up in the Classic.
That's the biggest thing. Words don't explain it, but just very happy for the team, and it's an experience. That's what it is.
I love skiing, and I love skiing as an individual, but I think having the team behind it means more, and always knowing that you're working hard and fighting for something more than just you.
It was a really fast race. I had some fast skis and fast times, I guess, and it was super icy out today, which I guess not a lot of people can ski in that, but I was fine with it. So.
The Wayzata boys edge Armstrong by 2 points to take the section title. Both teams qualify for state. Mount West Tonka is third, followed by Hopkins and Benilde St. Margaret's. Armstrong is the Section 6 girls champion, with runner-up Wayzata also headed to state. Hopkins is third, followed by Orono and Benilde. It's playoff time in high school girls hockey. Section play starts this week. The Wayzata girls hockey team will have to grind its way through a loaded Section 6 AA tournament to reach the state. But as Jason Malillo reports, the Trojans feel they're ready for the challenge.
By playing a very tough regular season schedule, Wayzata aims to be battle-tested when the playoffs start.
It's really huge because those top teams are what we're going to face all the way through the rest of the season now. So the way we feel prepared for that, and we know how the teams play and what we're expecting, it helps us a lot. And I think it sets us apart from some other teams heading into sections and going on forward.
The Trojans have progressed well this season, and they're pretty deep. 9 players have at least 15 points. Wayzata's top 2 scorers are sophomore Gretchen Branton and freshman Sloan Matthews.
Sloan and Gretchen are elite players, no doubt, and we give them a lot of crap, but they're not rookies anymore. Even as a freshman and a sophomore, they're in their second year, and they're right up there at the top in our conference, of the best conference in the state. So we expect a lot from them, which, when you consider they're 14 and 15 years old, is pretty impressive.
In mid-January, Wayzata lost in overtime to second-ranked Edina and then lost to Eden Prairie. The girls say that 2-game skid taught them a lot.
During the Edina game, when we lost in overtime, that was definitely a gut check, and a lot of players were really emotional about that because we really thought that we could get that one. And so we didn't come into the Eden Prairie game with the best mindset, but I think that we left knowing that something needed to change. And so after that game, I would say that was a turning point for us, and our mentality really took a shift there.
Wayzata could face Edina in the section semifinals and possibly top-ranked Blake in the championship. The Bears beat the Trojans early in the season. Jason Malillo, CCX Sports.
The Trojans open the playoffs on Saturday against Osseo Park Center at Parade Ice Garden. That's all for sports. Shannon, back to you.
All right, thanks, John. Up next, the perfect story for those feeling fatigued by winter. Something to brighten up the mood when we come back. And finally, calling all artists. It's time to think spring. Now is the time to apply to get into the Primavera juried show in April. The City of Plymouth and Plymouth Arts Council put on Primavera every year. It's a free annual art exhibition at the Plymouth Creek Center where the public can see and celebrate fine art and entertainment. This year it will be on April 12th and 13th, and artists may enter up to 3 pieces of original art for selection in the show. There are prizes awarded for the winning artists, and there's information posted on Plymouth's website if you want to enter your work. So go ahead and give it a try. That's all the news we have for now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here again tomorrow starting at 4.